Have you ever wondered why, despite all the achievements and successes, you still feel empty at times? Do you sometimes question, why can't I just be happy all the time? These are the thoughts that many of us struggle with. We chase happiness, thinking it's something we can grab, yet it often slips away when we least expect it. What if the secret to lasting happiness is not in seeking more, but in changing how we live our daily lives? Imagine waking up every day with a peaceful heart, free from stress and worries. A life where joy doesn't come from external circumstances, but from within. Can it be true that happiness doesn't depend on what happens to us, but on how we react to it? What if you could stay happy, not for a moment, but always? Well, this is what we're about to explore through ancient wisdom that has guided countless people towards lasting happiness. Welcome to this transformative journey where we delve into the teachings of Buddhism and how they can help you stay truly happy in life. Through simple yet powerful principles, you'll discover the key to unlocking a peaceful, joyful existence. Before we dive into the details, let me remind you that there are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. So, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Wisdom Woven. Your support makes all the difference in bringing more transformative content to you and others. In this video, we will unfold timeless teachings that can lead you to happiness, not just in fleeting moments, but as a constant in your life. Together, we will explore practical steps to cultivate a mindset of joy and contentment. Stay with us as we unravel the path to true happiness. Understanding the nature of happiness in Buddhism. In the beginning, there is a simple truth to remember. Happiness is not something you can chase or hold on to. It is not something that exists in the future or in the past. Happiness, in its truest form, can only be found in the present moment. The Buddhists believe that the nature of happiness is not external but internal. It is not based on what you have or don't have. It's not dependent on the people around you, the places you visit, or the things you own. The true nature of happiness is born within you, in the very stillness of your mind. In life, we often think happiness comes from getting what we want or avoiding what we don't. This is a natural human instinct, but Buddhism teaches us something different. It teaches that true happiness does not come from the fulfillment of desires. In fact, desires themselves are often the cause of suffering. It's the clinging to things, the wanting and the wishing for more, that leads us away from peace. You may ask, if happiness isn't in fulfilling desires, then where is it? The answer lies in understanding the impermanence of life. Everything in life is changing: our thoughts, our feelings, the people we meet, the seasons, even our bodies. Everything is temporary. Happiness, too, comes and goes with these changes. But when we begin to understand that nothing is permanent, we stop attaching ourselves to the idea of lasting happiness from outside sources. Instead, we turn inward, to the stillness and clarity of the present moment. Let's take a moment to reflect on this. Think of a time when you felt truly happy. Maybe it was a moment of quiet peace, or perhaps it was a time when you were surrounded by loved ones. If you look closely, you'll see that the happiness you felt was not because of the things or people around you. It was because, in that moment, you were simply present. You were not worried about what would happen next or dwelling on what had happened before. In that moment, you were just being. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of happiness. It is found in the present moment, in being fully alive in the here and now. The key is not to search for happiness outside of yourself, but to cultivate a state of mind that is content and at peace with whatever comes. The more you practice being present, the more you will experience this deep inner joy, no matter what happens around you. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds simple, but it's hard to practice. And you are right. It can be difficult to stay present. Our minds are often caught up in thoughts about the past or worries about the future. But the more you practice mindfulness, the more you can train your mind to come back to the present moment. This is a practice, just like any other skill. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful metaphor that describes this journey. Imagine you are sitting by a pond. The water of the pond represents your mind. When the pond is calm, you can see the bottom clearly. But when the water is disturbed, it becomes muddy and cloudy. In the same way, when your mind is calm, you can see things clearly. without the confusion of thoughts and desires clouding your judgment. Happiness comes from this clarity of mind, from stillness. So, how do we begin to cultivate this clarity? The first step is to understand the nature of your mind. In Buddhism, it is said that our minds are like a monkey, always jumping from one thought to another. It is very easy to get caught up in the cycle of our thoughts and emotions. But once you become aware of this, you can begin to quiet the mind. This is where meditation comes in. Through meditation, you learn to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. You learn to let them pass like clouds in the sky, without clinging to them. Meditation is not about clearing your mind of all thoughts. That would be impossible. Instead, it's about observing your thoughts with no judgment. When you sit in silence, you may notice how your mind runs wild, jumping from one thought to another. But with practice, you can learn to let go of these distractions and bring your focus back to the present moment. It's like training a wild horse. At first, it's hard to control, but with patience and practice, the horse becomes calm and steady. In Buddhism, this practice of mindfulness and meditation is central to understanding happiness. The more you practice, the more you understand that happiness is not something that is found outside of you. It is something you create within yourself. Your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, all of these shape your experience of life. When you learn to control your mind and live in the present, you begin to experience happiness in a way that is steady and unshakable. Another important teaching in Buddhism is the idea of non-attachment. This is closely related to the nature of happiness. We often think that happiness comes from holding on to things. Whether it's a relationship, a job, or a possession, we believe that if we hold on tightly enough, we will secure our happiness. But Buddhism teaches that attachment is the cause of suffering. When we cling to things, we create a sense of fear, the fear of losing what we love. This fear prevents us from experiencing true peace. Non-attachment doesn't mean you have to give up everything or stop caring about people and things. It simply means that you let go of the need to control or possess. You can enjoy the beauty of life in the things you love, but you don't depend on them for your happiness. You recognize that everything is temporary, and that is okay. When you understand the impermanence of life, you stop holding on so tightly. Instead, you learn to appreciate each moment for what it is, without clinging to it. When you practice non-attachment, you become free. You no longer need to rely on external circumstances for your happiness. Your happiness becomes a state of being, not something dependent on what is happening in your life. This is true freedom. True happiness, according to Buddhism, comes from living in harmony with the natural flow of life. It comes from understanding the impermanence of everything and not clinging to what is temporary. It comes from developing a mind that is peaceful and clear, free from distractions and desires. Happiness is not something you find in the world. It is something you create within yourself. When you begin to practice mindfulness, meditation, and non-attachment, you will see that happiness is already within you, waiting to be discovered. The power of mindfulness for inner joy. Imagine a moment when everything in the world seems to slow down. The noise of life, the endless thoughts racing through your mind, all fade away. You are present, fully, completely, here. This is mindfulness. But what does it truly mean to be mindful, and how can it bring us lasting happiness? Mindfulness is the art of being fully aware of the present moment, without distraction or judgment. It's about seeing the world as it is, not as you want it to be. In today's world, we are constantly distracted, our minds jumping from one thought to another, our attention fragmented. But true happiness doesn't come from running after thoughts or possessions. It comes from being deeply rooted in the now, in the only moment that truly matters. When we practice mindfulness, we start to notice things we often overlook. The simple act of breathing, the feeling of the ground beneath our feet, the warmth of sunlight on our skin. All these little details become sources of joy. We stop searching for happiness outside of ourselves because we realize it's right here, in the present moment, waiting for us to notice it. Buddha taught that suffering comes not from the world itself, but from how we relate to it. When we are constantly caught in thoughts of the past or worries about the future, we miss the richness of the present. We lose touch with the peace that is always available to us. Mindfulness brings us back to this peace. It allows us to experience life fully, without the distractions of our inner noise. In the practice of mindfulness, there are no good or bad moments. There is just awareness. Whether you are sitting quietly, walking, eating, or talking to someone, mindfulness asks you to bring your full attention to the task at hand. If your mind drifts, as it will, gently guide it back to the present moment, without judgment or frustration. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to stay calm and centered, no matter what is happening around you. Now, let's think about how mindfulness can bring happiness into your daily life. In each moment, you have the opportunity to choose how you react. For example, when faced with a difficult situation, rather than immediately reacting with frustration or anger, mindfulness invites you to pause. You take a deep breath and observe the feelings rising within you. You don't act on them right away. Instead, you give yourself the space to respond with clarity and calm. This simple pause can transform your experience, allowing you to maintain your inner peace even in the most challenging moments. Mindfulness also helps us develop a deep sense of gratitude. When we slow down and truly notice what is around us, we start to appreciate the small things that often go unnoticed. The scent of flowers, the laughter of a child, the warmth of a cup of tea. These simple moments of life become sources of joy when we practice mindfulness. And in doing so, we begin to see that happiness is not something that has to be earned or achieved. It's already here, in the present moment, if we are willing to look for it. The Buddhist teachings remind us that our minds are like a garden. If we let weeds of negativity, anger, and fear grow unchecked, they will dominate the garden of our hearts. But if we cultivate mindfulness, we can tend to the garden with love and care, pulling out the weeds and allowing the flowers of peace, joy, and compassion to bloom. This practice of mindfulness is not about trying to escape from the difficulties of life. It's about learning to be with them in a new way. Life will always have its ups and downs, but when we approach each moment with mindfulness, we can navigate these challenges with a sense of ease and grace. The pain and struggles we experience don't need to control us. We can observe them without being swept away by them, allowing us to maintain a sense of inner joy no matter what is happening around us. The key to mindfulness is consistency. It's not a one-time practice, but a way of living. As you begin to bring more mindfulness into your life, you'll notice that your moments of peace and happiness increase. You will find yourself more connected to the world around you, more present with the people you love, and more at peace with yourself. It's a gradual process, but every small step you take brings you closer to a life filled with joy and contentment. When you practice mindfulness, you begin to let go of the need for constant stimulation and entertainment. You stop looking outside yourself for happiness. Instead, you start to realize that the happiness you seek is already within you. It's not dependent on what you have or don't have, or on how others treat you. True happiness comes from being fully present in the moment, from accepting life as it is, and from allowing yourself to be at peace with whatever comes your way. To begin this practice, you don't need anything special. You don't need to go anywhere or buy anything. All you need is the intention to be present. You can practice mindfulness anywhere, while walking, while eating, while talking to a friend, or even while doing household chores. The more you bring your attention to each moment, the more you'll begin to see the beauty that already exists in your life. This beauty is always present, even in the ordinary and mundane. Mindfulness also invites us to let go of judgment. Often, we are quick to label our experiences as good or bad. We resist the things we don't like, and we crave the things we desire. But in mindfulness, there is no need for judgment. There is simply observation. When we stop judging our experiences, we create space for peace and acceptance to enter our hearts. This shift in perspective allows us to experience life as it is, without the need to change anything. As you continue to practice mindfulness, you will find that it becomes easier to stay calm and happy, no matter what life throws your way. The ups and downs of life will no longer disturb your peace because you will learn to ride the waves with grace, without being pulled under by them. This is the true power of mindfulness. It allows you to live with a sense of inner freedom, no matter what is happening around you. So, take a moment right now. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and bring your awareness to the present. Notice the sensations in your body, the sounds around you, the thoughts that come and go. This simple act of being present is mindfulness in action. It is the key to finding happiness, not in some distant future, but right here, right now. Through mindfulness, we discover that happiness is not something we need to search for. It is already within us, waiting to be realized. Overcoming suffering, the Four Noble Truths. In the quiet stillness of your heart, you may have already felt it. The discomfort, the dissatisfaction, the struggle. We all face moments of pain. But what if this suffering is not something to avoid or fear, but something we can understand and, in understanding, free ourselves from? The teachings of the Buddha offer us profound wisdom to overcome suffering, and it begins with the Four Noble Truths. The first truth is simple. Suffering is a part of life. No matter how much we try to avoid it, suffering is inevitable. It is woven into the fabric of existence. We experience it in many forms: physical pain, emotional distress, disappointment, loss, and even the quiet yearning for something more. We might try to escape it through distractions, but the truth is, it will always find its way back to us. But don't be afraid, this is not something to fear. It is a natural part of being alive. In fact, by acknowledging suffering, we start the process of letting it go. The second truth is this: suffering has a cause. It is not random or meaningless. At the heart of our suffering lies craving, our desire for things to be different than they are. We crave pleasure, we crave comfort, we crave control. But when things change, as they inevitably do, we find ourselves in pain. The more tightly we grip onto these desires, the more intense our suffering becomes. Think of it like holding onto a burning coal. The more you hold it, the more it hurts. But if you let go, the pain stops. Similarly, when we cling to desires, we create the conditions for suffering to arise. The third noble truth brings hope. Suffering can end. This is the most beautiful part of the Buddhist teachings. The end of suffering is not an abstract idea, but a very real possibility. If craving is the cause of suffering, then the cessation of craving brings freedom from suffering. This means we can stop clinging, we can release our attachment to things, and in doing so, find peace. This freedom does not require us to escape life or run away from our troubles. It requires only that we shift our relationship to them. Instead of clinging to things as if they can provide us eternal happiness, we begin to see them for what they truly are: impermanent, fleeting, and ultimately, not the source of lasting joy. The fourth truth is a path that leads us out of suffering, the Eightfold Path. The Buddha did not leave us without a guide. This path is a clear, practical set of teachings that can help us transform our minds and our lives. It is a path of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. And it is through following this path that we can truly free ourselves from the cycle of suffering. Let's take a moment to look at each of these steps on the Eightfold Path, which we will explore in depth in the coming parts. The first step is right view. Seeing the world clearly, without distortion. It means understanding that life is impermanent, that suffering is natural, and that everything is interconnected. With this understanding, we begin to see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. The second step is right intention, having the right attitude towards life. It is about cultivating kindness, compassion, and non-harming. It is the intention to live a life of wisdom and virtue, not out of selfish desire or anger, but out of love and understanding. Next is right speech, speaking truthfully, kindly, and with purpose. Our words have power, and they can either bring peace or cause harm. By practicing right speech, we bring harmony to ourselves and others. Then comes right action, living ethically, in a way that does no harm to ourselves or others. This includes acting with honesty, generosity, and integrity. It is about making choices that contribute to the well-being of all beings, not just our own. Right livelihood follows, which means earning a living in a way that does not cause harm to others. It is about engaging in work that is ethical and aligned with our values, rather than chasing material wealth at the expense of others' well-being. The next step is right effort, the energy we put into cultivating wholesome qualities and letting go of harmful ones. It is the effort to build a mind that is calm, clear, and free from attachment, greed, and hatred. Right mindfulness is about being fully present, observing our thoughts, feelings, and actions with awareness. It is about living in the moment without being caught up in the past or the future. With mindfulness, we can observe our suffering without becoming attached to it. Finally, right concentration is about developing a focused and undistracted mind. It is through concentration that we can experience deep states of meditation, which bring clarity and peace. Each of these steps on the Eightfold Path works together, supporting us in overcoming suffering and finding lasting peace. It is not a path that is walked once and then completed. It is a continuous practice, a journey that unfolds over time. But with each step, we move closer to the end of suffering and closer to the freedom and happiness that we seek. Understanding the Four Noble Truths is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a way of life. The teachings offer us a roadmap, not just for understanding why we suffer, but for how we can transform our lives. It teaches us to look inward, to understand our attachments, and to learn to let go of them. It asks us to shift our view of the world, to stop chasing after things that bring temporary pleasure and instead cultivate a deeper sense of peace that comes from within. As you reflect on the Four Noble Truths, remember, the purpose of these teachings is not to make you feel hopeless or burdened by the reality of suffering, but to inspire you to see that you are not powerless. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You have the ability to end suffering, starting with the way you view the world and yourself. The path to happiness is not about avoiding suffering. It is about learning to live with it, to transform it, and to rise above it. This journey of understanding suffering and its causes is the beginning of true freedom. It is the moment you realize that happiness is not something that can be gained, but something that can be realized. When we stop clinging to the idea of happiness as something external, we begin to find it within ourselves. So, take a deep breath and let these teachings sink in. Understand that suffering is not a punishment. It is not something that happens to you alone. It is the shared experience of all beings. But just as we all share in suffering, we can also share in its cessation. The path is before you. Step by step, the Buddha shows us the way out of suffering and into a life of peace, joy, and true happiness. The Eightfold Path, a roadmap to bliss. In the stillness of your mind, imagine a path, winding and quiet, leading you to a place of peace. This is the Eightfold Path, a simple yet profound way to live that promises to guide you toward true happiness. The Buddha taught this path because he understood that happiness is not something to be found in the world, but in the way we choose to walk through life. And the Eightfold Path is the map that shows us how to walk with wisdom, kindness, and balance. The Eightfold Path begins with right understanding. This means seeing the world as it truly is, without the fog of confusion or the distortion of desire. It means understanding the nature of suffering and its cause, but also the way to end it. Imagine, for a moment, a clear sky. No clouds, no storms, just clarity. This is what happens when you have right understanding. You begin to see that suffering is part of life, but it's not the end of the story. It's not a trap, it's a lesson. Then once you understand this, you are free to find peace, no matter what happens. Next, we come to right intention. This is the intention that guides your heart. It is the decision to live with kindness, with compassion, and with a desire to let go of all that causes harm. Right intention is the seed that grows into actions of peace. When your heart is pure, your thoughts and actions will naturally follow suit. Imagine planting a small seed in a garden. With care, patience, and the right environment, that seed will grow into something beautiful. Your intentions are the seeds of your happiness. Right speech follows next. This is the practice of speaking truthfully, kindly, and with respect. Words are powerful. They can heal or harm. Imagine the power of a soft, gentle word that brings comfort to someone in pain, or the weight of a harsh word that cuts deep into the heart. Right speech teaches us to use our words to build, not break. Speak with awareness, with mindfulness, and with the intention to uplift others. When we speak from a place of truth and kindness, our relationships become more meaningful and our hearts lighter. Then there is right action. This is the practice of living in a way that causes no harm to others. It means acting with integrity, honesty, and respect for all living beings. Right action is reflected in our daily choices, the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat others, and the way we care for the world around us. You may think of it like the ripples in a pond. When you throw a stone into the water, the ripples spread outward, touching everything. Your actions are like those ripples. When you act with kindness and care, your actions spread out, bringing peace to the world. Right livelihood is about how you make your living. It asks us to choose a path that is honest, ethical, and that does not cause harm to others. It is not just about earning money or success, but about creating a life that is in harmony with your values. If you are in a job that feels wrong or causes harm, it will affect your inner peace. But when you choose a livelihood that aligns with your principles, whether it's helping others, creating something beautiful, or offering a service that improves lives, your work becomes a source of joy and fulfillment. Then comes right effort. This is the effort you put into cultivating a positive mind. It is the effort to abandon harmful thoughts and replace them with thoughts of kindness, compassion, and wisdom. Right effort is not about forcing things or pushing too hard. It's about gently nurturing the mind, like a gardener tending to their plants. With patience, with practice, the weeds of negativity and worry are replaced by the flowers of peace and joy. Now, we have right mindfulness. This is the practice of being fully aware of what is happening in the present moment. It's about paying attention, whether you are eating, walking, talking, or just sitting still. Often, we let our minds wander to the past or the future, but mindfulness teaches us to stay rooted in the here and now. Imagine you're drinking a cup of tea. If your mind is scattered, you may not even taste the tea, let alone appreciate it. But when you drink with mindfulness, you savor every drop. You notice the warmth, the aroma, the flavor. Life, in its simplest form, is a treasure when we bring mindfulness to it. The final step is right concentration. This is the ability to focus the mind with clarity and purpose. Right concentration is developed through meditation, and it's a skill that helps us to quiet the distractions of the world and connect deeply with the present moment. With right concentration, the mind becomes like a still pond. The water is calm, reflecting everything with perfect clarity. When the mind is focused and peaceful, you are able to see things as they truly are. These 8 steps, right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, are not isolated practices. They are interconnected, like the spokes of a wheel. Each one supports the other, creating a strong foundation for a life of happiness and peace. When you follow the Eightfold Path, it is like building a house. You start with a strong foundation, and slowly, piece by piece, you add the walls, the roof, the windows. Over time, this house becomes your refuge, a place where you are safe, peaceful, and happy. The Eightfold Path is not a one-time practice, but a continuous journey. It's a path that leads to freedom, to happiness, and to the end of suffering. But remember, this path is not about perfection. It's about progress. You don't need to follow it perfectly, but to try, every day, to walk in its light. Each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to a life of true happiness. So take a deep breath, and know that every moment you walk with mindfulness, with kindness, and with wisdom, you are walking the path of peace. The Eightfold Path is a gift. It is a way of living that helps you create a mind that is free from the weights of desire, hatred, and confusion. It is the way to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And when you see clearly, you are free to live with joy, with love, and with a heart full of peace. As you begin to understand and practice these principles, you will find that happiness is not something that happens to you. It is something that arises from within. The path is always before you, simple and clear. All you need to do is begin walking. Every step, every breath, every moment of mindfulness brings you closer to your true nature, one of peace, love, and lasting happiness. Letting go, the art of non-attachment. To understand the art of letting go, we must first look at how we hold on. We hold on to so many things in our lives: ideas, possessions, relationships, emotions, and even memories. We think these things define us, that they make us who we are. But what happens when we cling too tightly? We become trapped by these attachments, and in turn, they begin to control us. This is the struggle that so many face in life. The tension between wanting and needing, the sense that without certain things, we are incomplete. Imagine you are holding a stone in your hand. At first, it seems harmless. It's just a stone, after all. But over time, You start to tighten your grip. You feel the weight, the strain, the discomfort, yet you refuse to let it go. It begins to hurt. That is what attachment feels like. It is not the thing itself that causes suffering, but the tightness with which we hold on to it. In Buddhism, we learn that attachment is one of the primary causes of suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering arises because we cling to things that are impermanent. Everything in life, people, things, situations, changes, but we often fail to see this truth. We desire things to stay the same, to remain in our control, and when they don't, we experience pain. The first step to letting go is to understand the nature of impermanence. Nothing in this world stays the same forever. The people we love will change, our possessions will wear out, and our circumstances will shift. This is not a tragedy, it is simply the nature of life. The more we resist change, the more we suffer. But when we accept the fluid nature of existence, we free ourselves from the chains of attachment. Letting go is not about abandoning everything we love. It's about realizing that we don't need to hold on to things to feel complete. We can appreciate them, enjoy them, but we don't need to cling to them for our happiness. This understanding brings freedom. When we stop gripping tightly to people, possessions, and outcomes, we begin to experience peace. Take a deep breath and think about something you are holding on to right now. It could be a past hurt, a failed relationship, or even a goal you haven't yet achieved. Now, imagine that you could release it, not in anger or resentment, but in peace. You are not losing it, you are simply letting it be, allowing it to float away like a leaf on the wind. This is the freedom that comes from non-attachment. The second aspect of letting go is learning to forgive. Holding on to grudges and past wrongs only creates more suffering for ourselves. Forgiveness is not about excusing the actions of others. It's about freeing ourselves from the weight of resentment. When we forgive, we are not doing it for the other person, but for ourselves. We release ourselves from the chains of bitterness and open the door to healing. Sometimes, we think that if we forgive, we are admitting weakness or that we are letting the other person off the hook. But true forgiveness is an act of strength. It requires courage to let go of the pain and to choose peace over suffering. It is the act of choosing to live in the present, not the past. Letting go also means releasing our expectations. We often have a set idea of how things should be, how others should behave, or how life should unfold. When these expectations are not met, we become disappointed, frustrated, or angry. But the truth is, life rarely goes exactly as we expect, and that is okay. When we release our rigid expectations, we open ourselves to the flow of life, to the beauty of what is, rather than what we think it should be. This doesn't mean we stop having goals or dreams. It simply means we are no longer tied to a specific outcome. We work towards our goals with full effort, but we are not bound by the need for things to turn out a certain way. When we learn to let go of our attachment to specific results, we find peace in the process itself, rather than in the end result. It is also important to recognize that letting go requires trust. Trust in life, trust in others, and trust in ourselves. We must trust that everything happens for a reason, that the universe has a way of guiding us, even when we don't understand the bigger picture. This trust is what allows us to release our fears, to stop worrying about the future, and to live fully in the present moment. The practice of non-attachment is not about detaching from life or becoming indifferent. It is about participating fully in life without clinging to any particular outcome. It is about loving deeply without the fear of loss, and living with purpose while accepting that things will not always go our way. Non-attachment gives us the freedom to experience life as it is, without being weighed down by the need for it to be different. In Buddhism, there is a teaching called the middle way. This means that we don't live in extremes. We don't become so attached to the world that we are constantly striving for more, nor do we withdraw completely from it in pursuit of some unattainable ideal of detachment. Instead, we find balance. We engage with the world, but we do not let it define us. We enjoy what we have, but we are not dependent on it for our happiness. As we practice letting go, we also begin to understand that we are not our possessions, our achievements, or our past. We are not defined by the things we hold on to. When we let go, we reconnect with our true nature, with the part of us that is always whole, always free, and always at peace. The path to letting go requires patience. It takes time to unlearn the habits of attachment that have been with us for so long. But with each step, we move closer to freedom. We begin to feel lighter, more peaceful, and more connected to the present moment. The things that once seemed so important begin to lose their hold on us, and we realize that happiness was never found in the things we clung to, but in the freedom to let them go. So, ask yourself, what are you holding on to? What could you let go of today that would bring you more peace? It might be a worry, a possession, a relationship, or an expectation. Whatever it is, take a moment to breathe and let it go. With each release, you make space for something new, something lighter, something freer, something more peaceful. Non-attachment is not a way of abandoning the world. It is a way of living more fully in it. By letting go of the things that no longer serve us, we create room for the things that truly bring us joy, peace, and fulfillment. The more we practice non-attachment, the more we come to understand that happiness does not come from what we hold on to, but from what we are willing to release. And so, the art of non-attachment becomes a practice of love, trust, and freedom. It is not about rejecting the world, but about embracing it with an open heart, free from the fear of losing it. Let go, and find the peace that has always been within you. Cultivating compassion and loving kindness. To truly understand happiness, we must look within and beyond ourselves. Happiness doesn't arise in isolation. It grows through connection, through understanding others, and in offering kindness without expectation. Compassion and loving kindness are not just noble ideals. They are practices that bring peace to the heart and joy to the soul. Consider this simple truth. The more we care for others, the more joy we find in ourselves. Compassion is the antidote to self-centeredness, which often breeds unhappiness. When we focus too much on our own struggles, our worries grow. But when we shift our attention to the well-being of others, our hearts expand and our worries shrink. This shift in focus is at the core of Buddhist teachings. It is a reminder that the root of suffering is not the world around us, but our attachment to our desires and self-centered thoughts. By cultivating compassion, we break free from the cycle of selfishness and open ourselves to a deeper sense of connectedness. Loving kindness, or metta, is a simple but profound practice. It is the act of wishing happiness and well-being for others. It begins with ourselves. Before we can offer kindness to others, we must learn to love and accept ourselves, flaws and all. Without this self-compassion, our attempts to show kindness to others will remain shallow. So, we begin by saying to ourselves, may I be happy, may I be at peace, may I be free from suffering. Once we have nurtured love and kindness within, we can extend it to others. Start with your loved ones, then expand to those who are neutral to you, and even to those you might have conflicts with. The process of extending loving kindness should be gradual, moving from the familiar to the unfamiliar. When you wish happiness and peace for others, you open the door for your own heart to heal. You might ask, but how do I cultivate such deep compassion when the world seems full of anger and suffering? The answer lies in practice. Just as a muscle grows stronger with exercise, so too does your capacity for compassion with each intentional act. Every time you choose to act with kindness, even in the smallest ways, you are deepening your ability to be compassionate. Start by observing the small moments in daily life. When someone cuts in front of you in line, when a friend is struggling, or when a stranger needs help. In these moments, your thoughts will naturally want to jump into judgment or frustration. This is when you can practice compassion. Instead of reacting with irritation, stop for a moment. Recognize that the person in front of you is human, just like you, facing their own challenges. Offer a silent wish for their happiness, and in doing so, your heart softens. The power of compassion and loving kindness doesn't just lie in grand gestures, but in the quiet, everyday moments. When you genuinely wish happiness for others, regardless of their actions or your relationship with them, you free yourself from the chains of resentment, bitterness, and negativity. Now, imagine the impact of cultivating compassion in every moment. You start each day by wishing well for those you meet, your family, your friends, your coworkers, even strangers. The energy you send out is felt by others, and it comes back to you. This cycle of kindness becomes a force that transforms both your own heart and the world around you. But let's be clear, compassion does not mean being passive or letting others take advantage of you. It doesn't mean tolerating harm or injustice. True compassion is the wisdom to act in ways that bring true benefit to both yourself and others. Sometimes, being compassionate means setting boundaries. It means saying no when necessary and protecting your own well-being while still wishing for the happiness of others. In Buddhism, compassion is not about pity. Pity implies a sense of separation, as if we are looking down on someone from above. Compassion, on the other hand, is a recognition of our shared humanity. We all experience suffering. We all desire happiness. When you cultivate compassion, you are not seeing others as lesser or in need in a way that makes you superior, but rather recognizing the shared struggles and joys of the human experience. Loving kindness is also about forgiveness. Forgiving others, and even forgiving yourself, is essential for peace of mind. Holding on to grudges and resentment only hurts you in the end. When you forgive, you release the hold that pain and anger have over you. This does not mean condoning harmful actions or forgetting the wrongs done, but it means letting go of the emotional weight that holds you down. Forgiveness is liberating. Take a moment to reflect on your relationships. Are there people you have been holding grudges against? Is there someone you have not forgiven, whether it is someone from the past or even yourself? By practicing compassion and loving kindness, you can begin the process of healing and releasing those burdens. It's important to understand that compassion is not a finite resource. It doesn't run out the more you give it. In fact, the more compassion you show, the more you cultivate within yourself. It's like a well that never dries up, but only becomes deeper with time. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And as you continue to cultivate compassion, you begin to see the world differently. You notice the goodness in people, even when it seems hidden beneath layers of hurt or anger. You begin to understand that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have, and that often, their pain manifests in ways that hurt others. With this awareness, your heart opens, and you become less judgmental, more accepting. Compassion and loving kindness are powerful not just for transforming others, but for transforming yourself. They heal wounds that you may not even realize you have. When you are compassionate, you are releasing yourself from anger, fear, and bitterness. Your heart becomes lighter, and the world feels a little bit softer. As you continue to practice, remember that each act of kindness, no matter how small, is a step towards a greater sense of inner peace and happiness. And as your heart becomes more open, your happiness will no longer depend on what happens to you or what others do. It will come from within, from your practice of kindness and compassion towards all beings. So, take a deep breath and let this practice of loving kindness and compassion become part of your daily life. It doesn't require grand gestures or perfect circumstances. It only requires an open heart and a willingness to be kind, first to yourself and then to everyone around you. When you look at the world through the lens of compassion, you will begin to see not problems, but opportunities for connection, for healing, and for growth. And in the process, you'll find that happiness is not something you chase, but something that arises naturally from the act of loving and caring for others. As you go forward in this journey, remember that every moment is an opportunity to practice compassion. Whether it's a smile, a kind word, or a silent prayer for someone's well-being, each moment contributes to your own peace and happiness. Let your heart be filled with love, and let that love radiate outward, touching the lives of all those you meet. Simplicity and contentment, finding peace in the present. In the stillness of a quiet morning, when the world outside is still, there is a deep sense of peace. Do you feel that? It's in the air, in the breath, in the space between each thought. This peace is not far away. It's here, right now, and it has always been here. Yet, we often miss it. We are too busy seeking happiness in things that don't matter, in things that pull us away from the present moment. True happiness does not come from what we accumulate, but from how we live with what we already have. Simplicity, my friend, is the key. When we let go of the need for excess, when we release the grip on things and expectations, we can find contentment. The heart becomes lighter and the mind clearer. In this space, joy is free to arise. Think about this. How often do you find yourself wishing for something more? A better house, a new car, a different job? These desires pull you away from the present moment. The truth is, the more you have, the more you have to worry about. The simple life is not about deprivation. It's about freedom. Freedom from the constant longing for more. When you don't need anything more to be happy, then you are truly free. Buddhism teaches us that happiness is not found in the future or the past, but in the present moment. When we focus on the here and now, we discover that the world is already perfect. There is no need to search for happiness because it is here, in the simple moments of life. The sound of birds singing, the warmth of the sun on your face, the taste of your food. These are the treasures that are often overlooked. It's easy to get lost in the distractions of modern life. We are constantly bombarded with messages telling us that we need more, that we should be striving for more. But the wisdom of simplicity tells us that we already have everything we need. Happiness does not lie in possessions or achievements. It lies in how we choose to see the world. When you embrace simplicity, you stop chasing things that don't bring true joy. One of the most powerful practices in Buddhism is mindfulness. This practice is about being fully present in each moment. When you eat, eat. When you walk, walk. When you talk, talk. And when you are with your loved ones, be fully with them. This simple act of paying attention to the present moment brings peace to the mind. When your mind is at peace, your heart is at peace, and happiness naturally follows. Let go of the need to fill every moment with activity. In the spaces between tasks, you can find contentment. You do not need to fill every moment with noise. Sit in silence. Watch the clouds pass by. Breathe deeply. You'll begin to notice that when you stop grasping for things, the mind becomes lighter and the heart becomes full. Contentment is not a goal to achieve. It is a state of being that arises when we stop reaching for more. It's like sitting by a still lake, where the water reflects the sky. The water is clear because there is no disturbance. In the same way, when we stop disturbing our minds with desires and distractions, we find clarity. This doesn't mean you should abandon your dreams or desires. It means that your happiness should not depend on them. Let your contentment come from within, not from external things. When you are content with what you have, you will find that you are more at peace with yourself and with the world around you. Simplicity also teaches us to let go of unnecessary attachments. When we become attached to things, whether it be objects, relationships, or even ideas, we create suffering. We fear losing what we have, and in that fear, we lose our peace. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning what is important to you. It means releasing the fear and the attachment to outcomes. It means trusting that everything you need is already here. Look around you. You don't need much to live a fulfilled life. You need food to nourish your body, water to hydrate, and shelter to protect you. Beyond that, everything else is a bonus. The more you accumulate, the more you have to manage, the more you have to protect, and the more you have to fear losing. The less you have, the less you have to worry about. In Buddhist teachings, we are reminded that all things are impermanent. The car you drive, the clothes you wear, even the people you love, everything changes. Holding on to things with a tight grip only brings suffering. Instead, embrace the truth that everything comes and goes. The more you accept the impermanence of life, the more you can live in peace. True happiness comes not from the things we acquire, but from the freedom to let go of what no longer serves us. When you embrace simplicity, you start to appreciate the small things. A simple meal, a conversation with a friend, a walk in nature. These are the moments that bring real joy. Happiness is not something to be chased. It is something to be experienced in the here and now. To live simply is to live with intention. When you choose simplicity, you choose to focus on what truly matters. You stop being distracted by the noise of the world and begin to hear the quiet whispers of your soul. In this silence, you find peace, and in that peace, you find happiness. Every moment is an opportunity to practice simplicity. You can begin right now. Look around you. What can you let go of? What unnecessary burdens are you carrying? Let them go. Release the weight and feel the freedom that comes with simplicity. When you do this, you will find that happiness is not something you need to search for. It is already here, waiting for you to recognize it. Simplicity also teaches us to appreciate what we have. Instead of focusing on what is missing, look at what you have in this moment. You have your breath, your body, the beauty of nature, and the love of those around you. These are the gifts that make life meaningful. When you focus on these blessings, you realize that you have enough. You always have had enough. Contentment is found in this acceptance. It is not a state of complacency, but a state of peace. When you are content, you are free from the anxiety of striving for more. You are free from the pressure of keeping up with others. You are free to be yourself, just as you are. In this state of contentment, the mind becomes quiet and the heart becomes full. There is no need to rush. There is no need to chase. You are already where you need to be. Happiness is not in the future. It is here, in the present moment, in the simple act of being. And so, as you go through your day, remember the wisdom of simplicity. Let go of unnecessary desires. Find joy in the present moment. Embrace the peace that comes when you stop seeking more and simply live with what you have. When you do this, you will find that happiness is not something to be attained, but something to be lived. Live simply, live contentedly, live in peace. And in this peace, you will find the happiness that you have been searching for all along. Conclusion: embracing the Buddhist way to lasting happiness. You have journeyed far, haven't you? Throughout this path, we have learned together that happiness is not a distant treasure, but something we can nurture within ourselves each and every day. You have walked the path of wisdom, mindfulness, and compassion. You have learned to release the things that weigh your heart down and discovered how to embrace the present moment with joy. Now, let's pause and reflect. Do you remember when we began? At that point, you may have felt that happiness was something outside of you, something you needed to chase. But look where you are now. You have come to realize that true happiness is within you. It's not something you have to seek in distant places or in future moments. It's something you can cultivate right here, right now, through your thoughts, your actions, and your awareness. Buddhism teaches us that everything in life is impermanent. The sun rises and sets, the seasons change, and so do our emotions. This understanding of impermanence brings freedom. It reminds us that no feeling, whether good or bad, lasts forever. The moments of joy and happiness you experience today are precious, but they are also fleeting. They come and go, just like everything else in life. This is why holding on to them too tightly can bring suffering. The key is to enjoy them while they last, and let them go when the time comes, knowing that more moments of happiness will follow. When we practice mindfulness, we are training ourselves to be present with whatever is happening in the moment. This is the key to lasting happiness. The mind often pulls us into the past, making us dwell on old hurts and regrets. Or it pushes us into the future, making us anxious about what might come. But the present moment is where life truly happens. Right here, right now, is where happiness is found. When you focus your attention on this moment, just this one moment, you can experience the peace and joy that is always available to you. Do you remember when we talked about the Four Noble Truths? These truths remind us that life includes suffering, but it also offers a way out of suffering. The cause of suffering is attachment, the craving for things to stay the same or to be different than they are. When we let go of these attachments, we find freedom. Freedom from fear, from worry, and from the endless desire for more. This is when happiness becomes more than just a fleeting feeling. It becomes a state of being. This is why the Eightfold Path is so important. It is not just a set of rules to follow, it is a way of life. The Eightfold Path teaches us right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. When you follow this path, you align your thoughts, words, and actions with wisdom and compassion. Your life becomes one of harmony and peace, and this harmony leads to happiness. But there is one more thing we must remember. Letting go of attachment doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we stop loving or stop engaging with the world around us. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When we let go of attachment, we are free to love more deeply, to care more genuinely, and to live more fully. The love we give is no longer based on the expectation of getting something in return. It is unconditional, like the love of a parent for a child. This kind of love brings joy, not just to others, but to ourselves as well. Now, let's think about compassion. Compassion is the heart of Buddhism. It is the recognition that we are all connected. When you practice compassion, you are not just being kind to others. You are also being kind to yourself. This kindness creates a ripple effect, spreading happiness and peace wherever you go. Each act of kindness, no matter how small, makes the world a better place. It is through compassion that we can find lasting joy, not just for ourselves, but for everyone we meet. As we come to the end of this journey together, remember this: happiness is not something you need to chase. It is something that grows within you, like a beautiful flower. All it needs is your attention, your care, and your willingness to let go of the things that block its growth. When you practice mindfulness, when you cultivate compassion, and when you follow the path of wisdom, you will find that happiness is not an illusion. It is a reality you can experience every single day. There may be times when life feels hard, challenges will come, and sometimes you may feel lost or uncertain. But remember, you are not alone. The teachings of Buddhism are there to guide you, and so is the wisdom that lives within you. When you return to the present moment, when you practice loving kindness and compassion, you will always find your way back to peace. The path may not always be easy, but it is always worth it. And so, we come to the end of our time together in this series. But remember, this is not the end of your journey. It is simply a new beginning. The teachings we have explored are not meant to be remembered in theory, but to be lived out in your everyday life. Every moment is an opportunity to practice. Every action is a chance to bring more happiness into the world. As you go forward, carry these teachings with you. Let them shape your thoughts, your actions, and your relationships. With every step, you will find more peace, more joy, and more happiness. You will see that the path to true happiness is not outside of you, but within. And when you walk it with an open heart, you will discover that lasting happiness is not a goal to achieve, but a way of being. Thank you for walking this path with me. May you always find peace in the present moment, and may your heart always be filled with the joy of true happiness.